You've seen the videos. Yugi cheated. Top 10 illegal moves by the king of games. He attacked the moon. Every few months, another channel drags Yugi Muto in front of the internet and reads out the same list of crimes. Illegal summons. Impossible plays. A literal ghost doing most of the work. And every time, the comment section nods along and convicts a teenage boy without a trial. Well, not today. Today, I am his lawyer. I have taken this case pro bono, partly because I believe in justice, and partly because my client pays in starships. And, over the next several minutes, I intend to prove that Yugi Muto never broke a single rule in Duel Monsters. Not one. Because breaking the rules of Duel Monsters would require Duel Monsters to have rules, and the prosecution's entire case rests on a rulebook that does not appear in a single frame of this show. Nobody reads it, nobody quotes it, nobody's ever seen it. The prosecution is waving around a document that, as far as this court can verify, does not exist. So let's go through the charges, all of them, one by one, and let's see how many survive contact with an actual defense. Charge 1, illegal summons. The accusation: throughout the Duelist Kingdom tournament, Yugi repeatedly summoned high-level monsters, summoned Skull, Dark Magician, the big ones, without tributing anything. In the real card game, those monsters cost 1 or 2 tributes. Yugi paid nothing. Turn 1, Dark Magician, good luck. The defense: tribute to what rule? Show me the rule. I'll wait. Duelist Kingdom was a private tournament organized on a private island by Maximilian Pegasus, the man who created the game. He designed the cards, he wrote the invitations, he built the arenas. And he personally competed in the finals of his own tournament and never tributed a single monster. When the inventor of the game runs his own event and nobody tributes, that is not cheating. That is the tournament format, that is house rules written by the man who owns the house. And it wasn't just Yugi. Every duelist on that island played exactly the same way. Kaiba dropped all 3 components of the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon onto the field like he was dealing a hand of poker. Weevil, Mako, Panik, the Eliminators, the finalists, all of them, summoning whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. If this is a crime, the entire island is a crime scene, and the prosecution has chosen to indict exactly 1 child. You cannot retroactively apply a rulebook that would not be written until years later. That is not a court of law. That is time travel. The charge is dismissed. Charge 2. He attacked the moon. Ah, yes. The prosecution's favorite, their star witness, the moon. The facts are not in dispute. Against Mako Tsunami, Yugi ordered Giant Soldier of Stone to attack the moon. The moon was destroyed. The tides receded. Mako's sea monsters were left flopping on wet sand like the world's most expensive fish market, and Yugi attacked them at his leisure. The prosecution calls this the most absurd moment in the history of the game. The defense calls it the finest piece of rules interpretation ever performed on television, and I will now explain why. First, that moon was not the real moon. Let's be very clear about that, because I can see some of you checking. The real moon is fine. That moon was a projection generated by the dueling arena, hovering over the field as part of the ocean terrain. And whose terrain was it? Mako's. Mako chose that field. Mako spent the entire duel exploiting that field, hiding his monsters underwater where they could not be seen, could not be targeted, could not be touched. He weaponized the scenery, and he was extremely pleased with himself about it. So the environment is part of the game now. Wonderful. Those are the rules Mako himself established. And if the ocean is a legal weapon for Mako, then the moon is a legal target for Yugi. You do not get to enjoy the tide and then object to gravity. You do not get to hide behind the terrain and then cry foul when the terrain is removed. Yugi did not break the rules of that duel. He read them more carefully than the man who picked the map. Dismissed. Charge 3, the Catapult Turtle Incident. The accusation: while dueling the Eliminator known as Panic, Yugi loaded his own monster, Gaia the Dragon Champion, onto Catapult Turtle and fired it, like artillery, at the Castle of Dark Illusions. The impact destroyed the castle's flotation ring. The castle then fell out of the sky and crushed every monster Panic controlled. The defense: let's walk through this slowly. Catapult Turtle's effect launches a monster. That is what the card does. That is its entire personality. Yugi activated the effect. Yugi launched a monster. The effect resolved exactly as written. Everything that happened after launch, the trajectory, the impact, the castle's frankly embarrassing structural engineering, is a matter between Panique and his architect. My client is not responsible for the fact that his opponent's floating fortress had exactly 1 load-bearing hula hoop. If your entire defensive strategy can be undone by a single well-thrown turtle payload, that is not cheating. That is a building inspection. And while we are here, let the record show who the prosecution is asking us to feel sorry for. Panic. A grown man whose job was ambushing children at night and taking their star chips, which, on this island, is functionally mugging. A man who, when he started losing, deployed actual flamethrowers at my client's face, mid-duel, as an intimidation tactic. Real fire. At a high schooler. The prosecution stands before this court and asks us to weep for this man's flotation ring. The court declines. Dismissed. Charge 4. the magical hats. The accusation in his rematch against Kaiba, Yugi played a spell card called Magical Hats, which produced 4 giant top hats on the field. He hid his Dark Magician under one of them. He then hid a trap card, Spellbinding Circle, under another one. Kaiba was forced to attack hats at random, like a man losing an argument with a street magician. The prosecution says monsters cannot hide under hats, and traps cannot be placed inside hats, because hats are not zones. The defense says, look at the card. The card is called Magical Hats. The artwork is hats. The effect is hats. My client played a card about hats, and hats occurred. Where, precisely, is the crime? The card promises hat-based deception, and it delivered hat-based deception. If anything, this is one of the few cards in the entire show that did exactly what it looked like it would do, and I find it telling that the prosecution has chosen to attack it. As for placing a trap under one of the hats, I asked the court, once you have accepted the premise of 4 enormous magical hats materializing on a battlefield, is the trap really where you draw the line? Is that the bridge too far? Kaiba had a 1 in 4 chance in the finest dueling brain of his generation. He chose poorly, twice. My client cannot be held liable for his opponent's luck at carnival games. Dismissed. Charge 5. The Wall of Kuriboh. The accusation, in that same duel, staring down the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, Yugi combined the weakest monster in his deck, Kuriboh, a brown ball of fluff with 300 attack points, with the spell card Multiply. The result was an infinite self-replenishing wall of exploding Kuribohs that no attack could get through. Kaiba's Ultimate Dragon, the fusion of 3 of the strongest monsters in the game, spent its turn detonating hamsters. The defense? Multiply multiplies. That is the card. My client took a legal monster and a legal spell, put them together, and produced a legal outcome that happened to be deeply humiliating for his opponent. Being embarrassing is not against the rules. If it were, half the duelists in this show would be serving life sentences. The prosecution's real complaint here is not that the play was illegal, it's that it was annoying, and the court has no jurisdiction over annoying. Dismissed. Charge 6, the Mammoth and the Dragon. Now we come to the serious charges. The accusation, later in that same duel against Kaiba, facing the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon once again, Yugi used polymerization, delivered via a card called Living Arrow, to fuse his own mammoth graveyard, a zombie mammoth, into Kaiba's dragon. Kaiba's dragon, not his. The undead mammoth rotted the fusion from the inside, and the dragon lost attack points every single turn as one of its 3 heads visibly decayed. It is, and I say this as his lawyer, one of the most disgusting things my client has ever done. But disgusting is not illegal. Read the card. The early text of polymerization says it fuses 2 or more monsters. It does not say whose monsters. My client did not break the text of the card. He explored its full legal surface area, which is what we in the profession call good lawyering. If the game's creator did not want cross-player fusion, the game's creator should have written a better card. My client is not responsible for gaps in the drafting. And context matters, so let me give the court some context about this particular duel. This is the duel where Kaiba, on the verge of losing, walked backwards to the edge of the castle wall and made the following his defensive strategy. If your attack hits me, the shockwave knocks me off this ledge and I fall to my death. That happened. My client's opponent used his own mortality as a trap card. He turned the duel into a hostage negotiation where the hostage was himself, and the prosecution wants this court to spend its outrage on fusion material. Dismissed, with prejudice. Charge 7, excessive force. The accusation, during the Battle City tournament, Yugi dueled a rare hunter who was running an XOD deck. After dismantling the XOD strategy, Yugi activated a card called Berserker Soul, discarding his entire hand for the right to keep drawing cards, and every time he drew a monster, his obnoxious Celtic Guardian attacked again, and again, and again. The rare hunter's life points hit 0 somewhere around the 3rd attack. Yugi kept going. He kept drawing and kept attacking well past the point of victory with a look on his face that I am legally required to describe as concerning until his friend Tei physically shouted at him to stop because the duel was already over. The defense. Berserker Soul says draw, and if it's a monster, attack. My client drew monsters, many monsters, consecutively. Is it his fault that his deck cooperated? The card sets no limit, the card was resolved as written, and if the duel had technically concluded a few attacks earlier, well, the referee should have called it. Oh wait, there was no referee. There has never, in the entire run of this show, been a referee. The prosecution cannot cite my client for playing past the whistle in a sport that does not own a whistle. I would also note, for the record, that this particular opponent was a rare hunter playing with counterfeit cards. Counterfeits. Actual, provable, hold them up to the light forgeries. The prosecution has chosen to charge the boy who attacked too enthusiastically, and not the criminal organization printing fake XOD-us in a basement. The court sees where the prosecution's priorities lie. Dismissed. Charge 8. The impossible draws. The accusation, statistics. The prosecution has done the math, and the math is damning. Time and time again, with the duel on the line, with exactly one card in his 40-card deck capable of saving him, Yugi closes his eyes, places his fingers on his deck, whispers about the heart of the cards, and draws precisely that card, every time. The odds of his career-long top-decking record occurring naturally are, according to the prosecution's expert witness, roughly comparable to the odds of being struck by lightning while winning the lottery inside a collapsing casino. The defense does not dispute the math. The defense disputes its relevance. Show me the rule against luck. Show me the rule against faith. There is no deck check in the world that can detect belief. My client shuffled. His opponents cut the deck. The draws were physically legal in every observable way. What the prosecution is actually alleging is that my client cheated via destiny, and I would remind the court that destiny is not a banned mechanic. It's not even on the limited list. Furthermore, if we are disqualifying players for improbable draws, I invite the prosecution to examine literally every duelist in this show, all of whom drew exactly the card the situation required at exactly the moment the episode needed it. Either the entire cast is cheating, or the universe itself has a flair for the dramatic. The defense submits it is the latter. Dismissed. Charge 9, the pharaoh. And so we arrive at the big one, the charge underneath all the other charges. The accusation, Yugi Muto received outside assistance in virtually every major duel of his career, from a 3,000-year-old spirit of an Egyptian pharaoh living inside his Millennium Puzzle who took direct control of his body for the difficult matches. 2 players, 1 registration. The prosecution calls it the most flagrant case of outside assistance in the history of competitive gaming. The defense concedes the facts. He is possessed, has been the whole time. The hair, the voice getting deeper, the sudden confidence, all of it, that's the pharaoh. We are not contesting this. But show me the rule. Find me one line in any rulebook, in any tournament policy document on this planet that says players may not be possessed by the ghost of an Egyptian pharaoh. You cannot. It is not there. No governing body in the entire history of organized card games ever thought to write it down, and you cannot violate a rule that no one imagined needing. My client did not slip through a loophole. My client is the loophole, and being a loophole is legal. Consider also the question of identity. Same body, same deck, same hands physically drawing the cards, same registration at the sign-up desk. If a player is allowed to consult his own memories, his own instincts, his own inner voice, then my client simply has a more talkative inner voice than most, one with 3 millennia of gaming experience and unresolved trauma. That is not a second player. That is a personality feature, and let us not pretend the playing field was otherwise clean. Pegasus read his opponent's minds during his own tournament with a magic eyeball, seeing every card in Yugi's hand before it was played. My client's response to this, the so-called mind shuffle, switching control between himself and the pharaoh so that the mind being read kept changing, was not cheating. It was a countermeasure. It was self-defense. When your opponent is telepathically screen peeking, scrambling the screen is not a crime. It is basic security. And in Battle City, the tournament's main villain, Marik, controlled multiple duelists remotely, like puppets, from across the city. Against that backdrop, the prosecution wants to disqualify my client for having one supportive ghost roommate who helps with card games. If full bracket mind reading is fine, and remote control puppet duelists are fine, then the pharaoh is fine. Dismissed. Closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution's entire case rests on a single idea, that Yugi Muto violated the official rules of Duel Monsters. But over the course of these proceedings, we have established something important. The only rules that ever existed in this show are the ones we saw on screen. Nobody ever opened a rulebook, nobody ever cited a regulation, nobody ever called a judge, because there were no judges, anywhere ever, including at the world's most prestigious tournaments, which were organized, without exception, by unhinged billionaires with supernatural agendas. And on screen, the rules are clear. The moon is targetable. Castles have weak points. Hats conceal. Kuribohs multiply. Fusion is a suggestion. Luck is a skill. And being a pharaoh is legal. By the only rulebook that ever mattered, the one written one episode at a time, my client's record is spotless. Yugi Muto did not cheat. He simply understood, before anyone else on that island, the one true rule, Duel Monsters. The rules are whatever the current episode needs them to be. That is not cheating the game, that is mastering it. That is, if I may say so, exactly what a king of games would do. And under that rule, Your Honor, my client is undefeated. The defense rests. Screw the rules. My client didn't need